Welcome to Thinking Differently about Document Management and Workflow. My name is Chuck Wilson. I'm a solution specialist with Doc.It. Our course objectives in this session are to discuss and learn about document management and workflow challenges that are being faced by firms of the same size or similar demographics as yours. Also, to explore methods other firms have used to ensure that they're making decisions that streamline process and also support their goals. We want to talk about what success looks like or what it might look like for your firm, and also how we use a very simple model at Doc.It to mentor staff about how document management and workflow fit in your firm. Our specific course agenda is to review some key terms and core beliefs that'll help us make sure we're understanding each other. We're going to talk about the challenges that we face when we go through things like document management and workflow projects. Then I'm going to go over a little bit about defining what success looks like for your team. And we have a model at Doc.It that we like to use to show how all these things fit together, which we're going to go over. We can use that to mentor staff and help make sure we're all on the same page. Then I have some keys to share about when to use that model. And also we'll get into summarizing and closing with some key takeaways of the presentation. Foundations are really important to learning. They give us a solid ground level where we can build our ideas and put them together with the methods we use to run and improve our business. And the more years I've been involved in this business, the more I've come to understand this truth that's on screen. Document management and workflow affect everything you do in your practice every day. And it's true because your business is about expert content in the form of documents that a lot of people use to create a lot of different products that you deliver to your clients, your opinions. Having an idea about why document management and workflow are important to us, it helps us move into the 8 key terms that I want to go over. And these will help us have confidence that our teammates are understanding goals and each other and what needs to be done next the same way, rather than pulling in different directions through a misunderstanding that we might not identify. Let's start with document management. All of the methods and tools you employ to create, store, and deliver expert content are your document management system. Workflow is our next one, and to me that's an improved digital equivalent of paper files moving through your practice as you create that expert content and your projects get completed. The definition of workflow hasn't been a problem so much over the years as understanding when digital workflow solutions should be implemented. The first season a firm works completely electronically from the beginning of an engagement. The prior year or period is paper and it can still move through the office, which is to say that no matter what you do, a part of your old workflow system has to be maintained that first season you work electronically. Once you're through that full season of electronic work, or at least electronic storage at the end of projects, the prior year is electronic and not paper. A lot of firms focus on developing skills with new document management tools and improving their processes in that first busy period after implementation, and then they add the electronic workflow piece after they have a better understanding of their new tools. And with the skills they've developed around the new tools and their updated processes, then they're really best positioned to quickly and easily implement workflow. And also, by the second electronic season, it prevents the need to maintain paper routing sheets and older tracking systems. And firms who have been fully electronic tend to implement workflow more immediately because any other option would be a step backward, creating some sort of manual tracking system. And either way, whether it's paper or electronic, workflow is the thing that helps each of us do the right next thing while helping us quickly access all the necessary files. Success is the next one on my list. It's really more than just one or more destinations. It's also got to be about how we travel. If we're going to drive to Albuquerque, New Mexico, or even just go there, not drive, some of the methods that we could travel on our way there could get us there right on time and help us conserve energy, and others wouldn't. It's important to me to think in terms of maybe how we travel instead of just a destination that we're shooting for, because that gives us something else to focus on once we achieve a goal. It can be really challenging for teams and groups of people when they achieve a static goal, something that they're shooting for, but then they don't have anything else next or right after it to shoot for. And so when we focus also on how we travel, that gives us this baseline to keep our attention on. From there, I like to think about being effective. And to me, that's doing the right thing. Another way I like to say it is that you're doing something that needs to be done at the right time to help get you to your destination. It's a really subtle thing, but over time, we often wind up doing unnecessary things that don't help us achieve our objectives. I think it was in Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell's book. He had a story about holiday ham, as a matter of fact. I think it was around Thanksgiving, and his family was together. And I think it really illustrates this effectiveness point. I believe, if I remember the story correctly, he was in the kitchen with his mother, and she was putting a ham in the oven. He was asking her why she was cutting the end off of this ham as she was putting it in the oven, or just before. And if I remember right, she was telling him that she was, that's the way we always did it. We always did it that way. We cut the end off the ham. And so he asked one more time, and apparently she got a little defensive, and then he let it go, right? That's just how we always did it. And so he goes in the other room, and he's sitting with his grandmother or his aunt, and ask the same question. Why do we cut the end off the ham? And his grandmother said, or his aunt said, well, your mom's cutting the end off the ham? And he said, yeah, right before she puts it in the oven. And she said, well, in the old house, we always used to do that because it was the only way it would fit in the oven. And I see that kind of thing at accounting firms. And I lived through it myself. We were taught how to do something by someone who's there 10 years before us, and we get comfortable in our patterns, and so we do what we always did. If being effective is doing the right thing, then being efficient is doing that thing well. And as important as efficiency is, we hear that word a lot, it really becomes meaningless if we're not being effective first. If we're cranking widgets, we can crank a whole bunch of widgets, but if they're the wrong ones, it doesn't mean a whole lot. And in our world, in my world, I like to say productivity is what happens when we are effective and efficient. And that leaves me with two other really common words that I want to talk about. One is files. Those are what are stored on computers or networks. And then documents are the organized content displayed by programs. I like to think about this. What I say is when we talk about a Word file, like a .doc or a .docx file that's in Windows Explorer, then we're talking about a file. And when we're collaborating about the content of an engagement letter, the way we see it on screen in Microsoft Word, then we're talking about a document. It's going to be a lot easier to visualize that when we get to the model in a few minutes. A simple way to understand the importance of it is like this. We can manage a file without the program that allows us to see what's inside the file. So file management does not always include document management, but document management is always going to include file management. So if we've clarified some key terms and some basic definitions of words that we're going to use as we talk about a project like this, that allows us to move into some core beliefs, which is part of our foundation. The first one, for me, when I think about a public accounting firm in North America, is that you value being known as a knowledge broker and a trusted advisor. And for me, that's how I see the baseline of a CPA's brand. It's a big part of why you do what you do. And if our foundation that we're building had concrete, to me, this would really be it. The decisions that we might make that don't serve that belief, we should probably consider really carefully for what benefit they're providing. We might be running in a circle on something like that. And next, especially as it pertains to document management, you want to retain control of your documents, and you want to avoid environments that are going to keep it proprietary to a single vendor's software. When you're generating all this expert content, you want it at your fingertips for years or decades, and sometimes indefinitely. Then I say document management and workflow software should enable you to work more efficiently with tax, accounting, payroll, time and billing. We could keep listing all the software you might touch. In addition to supporting you in your regulatory environment, if document management and workflow tools don't enhance and improve productivity and customer service, then implementing them is little more than changing just for the sake of change. I actually have a total of 9 core beliefs. My next one is that every document really should be a few clicks or keystrokes away, regardless of the software program you use to create it. Compared to a paper file room, the value of accessing any document in a matter of seconds is really self-evident. There are two types of documents in public accounting firms. We've got dynamic and static documents. At least this is one way to look at it. I'm going to get into the importance of those, the difference, when we get into that model I was mentioning. But the bottom line is, when we're working on something, it really does need to be flexible and dynamic. And that's a certain set of rules in how we manage documents, because it has to be flexible. Otherwise, we slow you down, and that affects your margin. And then when you put a document away, you're storing it, and that's a whole different type of librarianship, where we're really protecting the integrity of the document, and the stability of it and the presentation of it is much more important than just how rapidly you can manipulate it. And the next thing is that time and motion, they're really important to personal efficiency, but they're secondary to a team's efficiency. When you've got multiple staff members and they take similar steps to accomplish tasks, then everybody is able to understand and predict better what's going on around them. And if we're going to get somewhere specific, then we need to know where we are, but also where we want to go. And if people at your firm have a lot of different ways of getting things done when they're doing the same type of thing, and if one of our main goals is productivity improvements, then getting everybody working the firm way, and I'm making air quotes here, is going to yield greater productivity improvement than if we focus on just individual clicks or steps, because the firm way will have already been vetted as efficient. So I'm going to wrap up core beliefs on this slide, and then we'll get into discussing some of the challenges that are faced. My next one is that during an engagement, there should really be one central location for organizing everything related to that engagement. If everything we need is in one place, and no matter where we go, every place looks the same, then everything's going to move faster through the firm without anybody feeling like they're working harder. After that, I say you either know where to file a new document, or you know the person who's going to file it properly. And when I look at a group of people, a wide demographic within a firm, everybody has different responsibilities, and especially regardless of their responsibilities, we each adapt to new systems at different speeds. And it's important, especially in the early stages of a document management and a workflow project, when we go through those changes, that we each get the benefit from the strengths of the people around us. My last one here is that you want a firm-wide approach to document management and workflow, not just individual or departmental workarounds. And this is an expansion of the first point on this slide. In the case of the first point, it's really about better integrating individuals as work is handed off from one person to another. And in this last point, it's really more about integrating teams. And as you'll see when I get to that model in just a moment, it's important to consider the needs of different teams and departments as you look at things like DM and workflow tools, so that we can benefit from having our skills in any certain set of tools translate across as much of the staff as possible. Also, just in a very general way, the fewer systems we put in place, the fewer systems we have to maintain, the lower our total cost of ownership is, and the faster we can get new staff up to speed. There are challenges common to many firms when we consider technology, software, change management, document management, and workflow. Four of the most common ones that we run into when we're speaking with firms are that it's difficult to know who to trust when you're talking to people. Who has the right advice? We want to feel confident that our decisions are solid, and that we waste as little time as possible when we're implementing new systems. And so we want to learn from the people around us, and sometimes it can be tricky knowing who to trust. The next one is it's hard to know what to measure. Once we make a selection and we begin, the only way we know if we're getting anywhere is if we measure. And that starts by identifying where we are. It's definitely always a lot more than just paperless. If we're only talking about something like document management and file storage, and not about what work is being accomplished, how it's accomplished, by whom, and when, then paperless would be more accurate. And the last item is that adopting the right new habits is really key. And that's true because managing and adapting to change is hard enough without starting out by developing the wrong habits. There are a lot of keys to when we talk about something like developing new habits, but a simple way I like to say it or look at it is like this: new systems and procedures are most quickly adapted to if we identify a habit we need to change, we're clear about why we want to change that habit, and we practice the new behavior whenever we're triggered to do the old behavior by anything that causes that. So how do we deal with these challenges? Well, a good place to start is with independent research and surveys from your peers, and we want ones that aren't skewed by vendors. It's worth confirming that the challenges we identify when we're talking to our teammates are the same challenges that are felt by others in the same business, because the more others are identifying those challenges, the more likely we are to find tools and experts who are focused on helping us solve them as productively as possible. Also, the list of challenges you come up with when you're talking to your team, when you refine that by what you learn from independent research with your peers, then that can become the starting point from which we're able to begin asking questions that are most likely going to help get us where it is we're trying to go. In this case, I've got a couple of points I'd like to share with you from the Accounting Firm Operations and Technology Survey, an ebook. It was published in 2014, but the particular data I want to share with you, it's just a little over a year old, but the data is really pertinent, just a little bit of it that I'd like to share. There was one question in particular: the biggest technology challenge you face managing your practice in the next 1 to 3 years. And so when this was asked, you can see on the right side of the screen the percentage of responses and which ones were the 3 big ones. Workflow and efficiency, getting clients on board, working with a firm in a more digital way, meaning your clients, and then also creating a paperless firm. Well, that top answer to me is all about doing more of the right thing productively, efficiently. The response about working digitally with your clients is about improved customer service, but it's also about regulatory compliance. And if clients have their information in an electronic format, why print it, come to the office, drop it off, and meet when it could be uploaded through a secure web-based portal? And then that third highest response there to me is about facilities, infrastructure, or saving space that would normally be taken up by paper files. As well, there's proven dramatic time savings when we're recalling information electronically instead of going to find it if it's on paper. If we have at this point a common language and core beliefs, and we've identified challenges about what we're about to face, then it's really time to look at success and how do we define that. So what does success look like? Before we get in a car to drive to Albuquerque, like I mentioned earlier, most of us would consult a map. And success is going to include picking that destination, but also how we're going to get there. And in this case, we chose driving. If we don't choose Albuquerque, we might wind up there, but if we didn't choose it, it really isn't going to matter very much as we drive through or stop for the night. So first, success is a simple agreement about what your business is. For instance, a clear and simple definition can be how we travel. I like to say we produce expert content and provide trusted advice. Second, if we add to that how we travel, those additions are going to be specific, measurable, and we're going to expect them to change. For example, no paper file room. That would be a specific, measurable addition. Having a certain percentage of our clients using a portal, or even something like a particular improvement in realization or efficiency. And the addition of goals are the destination. All these little goals that we put on, we can measure, and those become destinations that we reach along the way while we're producing expert content and providing trusted advice. The third part to me is that it's balanced. Consider the value of personal goals, environment, client experience, and the opportunities you want to create for your team. There's always room to improve balance, and it's important because, like I said earlier on a previous slide, it has a lot to do with why we show up in the first place. Whenever your team goes through changes, it's easy sometimes to underestimate the value of reviewing your personal definition of success away from work as well as professionally to try to find some alignment there. So how does this all fit together? Well, we're going to look at that model I mentioned. We say the paper office versus the electronic office. If our goals, like getting rid of a paper file room or replacing an electronic storage or other document management system, delivering a certain amount of work through a portal electronically, or achieving improvements in realization or efficiency, if that's where we're headed, then this model would be like our map and help us evaluate how we're going to get there. We start with a T account and imagine no computers for a moment, because it's important to identify what's always been critical about how we manage documents. And we use a T account because there really are two types if you look at it from a really high level. On the right side, we say published to an accountant. That's a final issued document. That's one way to look at the right side of the model. The other type, if the right side is published or final issued opinions, then everything on the left side is unpublished. It's work in process. It's every document in whatever condition it's in before you issue your opinions. And what I'm going to do is put 4 characteristics up here. The first one is that published documents are static. They can't change. If you were to walk into a paper file room and grab a return that you were talking to a client about, you wouldn't even pause to think if it's changed, if it's like laser tone or on paper. It's easy to overlook that when we're talking about bits and bytes and digital documents rather than just paper documents. And that characteristic is exactly the opposite when we're talking about work in process. It needs to be really easy to introduce changes. That's where our margin would be. Then we drop down a layer and we say application or tools, media, columnar paper if we don't have computers, and all the different colored pencils and adding machines. The key isn't exactly which tools were used, it's that there are many of them, and there are many staff and many clients and many types of opinions that you issue. And then when we finish generating the documents, the opinions, more often than not, we put them away on 8.5 by 11 paper. The last two concepts are librarianship. On the left side of the model, if we're talking about pure paper and accordion files with manila folders inside them, then we say less formal because maybe it's in somebody's trunk. They went home and did review at home, or it's behind a door somewhere and we lost track of it. And so a few of us mobilize and we go find it and then we get back to work. That's less formal than inside a paper file room where we have the accordions in a very specific order and we're storing them alphanumerically, and we have this many years on site and X many more years off site. And it makes it easy to find things because we have that system in place. And the last idea is access control and audit trail. If you needed a key to get into this non-computerized office, then that's your access control, and an audit trail might be as simple as a sign-in, sign-out sheet. So when we flip the switch now and we say, let's go completely electronic, where are the changes and how does that work? Well, we still need dynamic, easy to change documents as we're generating opinions, and then when we're finished and we issue them, we definitely need static versions of not just the opinion, but also the supporting document for a number of reasons. Because it's client service, it's easy to lay our hands on it, it's easy to read because it's not application dependent, but also there are risk management issues at play there because we're keeping these documents for long periods of time. And if we're ever in like an e-document discovery situation, then we've got them in a format that's easy to provide. We see the change when we go down to the next level. Instead of things like columnar paper and adding machines, we're talking about the productivity suite from Microsoft or Outlook or depreciation. There are anywhere from 40 to 70 different pieces of software that you might touch. We had about 45 at the firm I worked at when I last did the audit. Again, the key isn't so much exactly which pieces of software you use, it's that there are many, and that's not going to change. There are going to be a lot of tools you use to generate those opinions. The first big change is that instead of putting paper away anywhere, whether it's the opinion or whether it's the supporting documents, we're going to put it away and lock it down as PDF. And then from there, librarianship, definitely there's a flexibility, but it's much improved in an electronic office. And then librarianship is more formal when we talk about the right side of the model for published documents. Access control and audit trails are improved because we press Control-Alt-Delete to log in. We sort of lose our anonymity when we use computer and network systems. What I like to do is place document management at the bottom of the model and put a few of the tools that you're used to using there to help drive this home. Windows Explorer is a great example. At Doc.It, we say that's unpublished dynamic file management. We can put a Word document out on a mapped drive somewhere, and someone else can copy it and move it and rename it. It's elegant, it's powerful, but it's also enough rope for us to sort of hang ourselves and each other, because if the more players we have on the team who aren't doing it the same way, well, the bigger mess we create. And really specifically, it's not so much that getting something saved is the challenge. It's when we need to go back and find things that were maybe created by other people who are looking at it differently than us. That's a challenge. And also, when we talk about living up to our own file retention standards, it's really challenging when documents are everywhere in Windows Explorer and you can't really rely on how it's set up for you to police your own retention policies. That's just one of many areas where a document management system really is going to shine and help you live within that environment. The next one would be your tax system. A very specific, unpublished, dynamic document management system. You have to open the tax product to see a return that's in play that you haven't finished yet versus one that you've maybe printed out or saved as a PDF. Paper is an unpublished dynamic document type that would be stored in folders, so that definitely fits over there when we're talking about like pencils versus ink. Electronic binders are unpublished dynamic document management systems. We can keep work papers and product deliverables, your opinions, inside an electronic binder. They're very easy to organize. And it's also how we say that librarianship can be improved. It's less formal, it's flexible when we're on the left side of the model, but at the same time, when we're in an electronic binder, it's easy to lay our hands on it. It's never going to be stuck behind somebody's door or in someone's trunk. It's always going to be there. And the last one I'll put on the left column is Client Portal. If someone listening hasn't actually heard that before, we're talking about the web interface that one of your clients could log into to upload or download a file that you're sharing with them or that they're sharing with you. And on the right side, we say Document Archive. Electronic file room would be a fair way to think of it. The archive is where issued opinions and supporting work papers go to be aged and be in a non-proprietary format like PDF, so they're really fast to browse, and you know they're going to look exactly the way you created them, whether it's 5 years or 10 years later. And then, of course, client portals exist on the right side of the model as well, because we can deliver issued opinions that way, final documents. So the big deal here is that the tool belt is what is changing, not the tools. You already started to use all these different electronic tools. The big change is how we finalize work and how automatically we can create this storage location that we're aging, and how well we police electronic binders and all the different WIP documents. So when can we use this model? Well, when we're onboarding new staff, in addition to sharing a common language with them when we bring them in, whether they're new hires out of school or whether they're coming from another firm, we also would share our definition of success, and then we can use the simple model that we were just talking about to mentor them about where things are in the firm, where we store them, how to use those different tools, and how we manage change. And then another place to refer to it would be when we're integrating new software. Anytime we're going to implement new tools, we can use the model among different team members that are the group that are implementing it and making business decisions as they discuss how those tools are going to fit, and help ensure that any two or more of us that are on that team or that committee implementing them are really understanding something the same way. It's one thing to say something to someone, it's another thing altogether to say it and then at the same time show some sort of visual about what it is you're talking about. It helps assure that our understanding is on the right page. And then also facility and location changes. Sometimes the location or facilities changes, they give us a reason to refer to the model. It's especially true if we're merging practices together. That's the one I lived through several times. The model is going to help everybody see what's going to get migrated and what won't, and where are we going to find it, and how will it be accessed. It's a way to bring an incoming group that's going to become a part of your team that may have had a different product type. Maybe they used a different tax system. Having a model and discussing it very specifically about, well, we're going to give you this kind of training to use the new tax system, and we're going to store things this way, and your old tax data is going to be available here, and we're going to make it very easy, and this is how we're going to do it. When you can demonstrate that rather than just say that it'll all work, that's going to help ease that team's transition into your practice. The last item is really anytime, this is my catch-all, anytime we lack clarity about where something is or what we're going to use to get it done. I say, catch-all, but really what that's about is anytime you're trying to assure that you have understanding with the people you're talking to. When we're talking about how stuff's going to move through the office or where we're going to find it or what the tools are, it's great to have one other way to communicate that than just verbally. To have it printed out or to have a model certainly helps drive that home. Also, that last point there about lacking clarity about where things are, what we use to get it done, that leads us to the idea of workflow and a really specific way to visualize what that is in an accounting firm. I like to visualize it as an assembly line that we're going to use to produce and deliver expert content. When we're doing work, there are going to be sub-assembly lines that intersect with and feed that main assembly line. And these are systems that we use to create work papers that are going to support our expert opinion. And in addition to creating documents that support our opinion throughout a project, there are going to be methods that we're going to use to gather other types of documents that are also going to intersect with that main line and feed our assembly line. Then as we accumulate and create and prepare our expert content, we're going to move it forward to the next person for review or for filing. And sometimes it'll go backwards, right, from review back to prep. And concurrently, we're going to need a secure method of electronic delivery. And then we get to that, like that portal technology. So we're moving jobs through on this assembly line. And also, we're tracking it as it moves along. Each of these are distinct statuses like prep or review. Whether we're tracking e-filing or e-file confirmations or any other types of states or tasks that we're talking about, conditions that work might be in. Workflow is the thing that's going to let us know what the status is of a given job and who it's assigned to and what the due date is, and it all should be very much in real time. So you have a screen in front of you and you can just basically ask that question whenever necessary. So at Doc.It, what do we mean when we say think differently? Well, our first objective was to learn about document management and workflow challenges that are faced by firms like yours. So we identified challenges. Our second and third objectives were to explore methods other firms have used to streamline their processes and to support their goals and identify what success is for them. Then our fourth objective was to learn how to use a simple model to mentor staff about how document management and workflow fit in a firm. And then when we say thinking differently, what I mean is if you know what success looks like and if you have a common language, you've identified challenges, and you have a model to clarify what's what when there are questions or misunderstandings and where it is and how that stuff all fits together in your office, then your team really is empowered to know the next right thing to do to move your whole team in the right direction. So from here, I want to put the screen back up with the electronic office model on it as it was when we completed it. The top half of the model is about characteristics that have always been important when we're talking about the different document types as they're created and moved through an accounting firm, and also the tools that we use to open those files, documents, and get work done. The bottom half of the model is about our document management tool belt. It allows us to understand where the tools reside or what tools we're going to use for those documents. And I flip the page here and I say, what if we very specifically put Doc.It language on that? In the electronic office in the Doc.It world, what are we talking about? And in the Doc.It electronic office, we have all of the same tools and simplify where things are and how they're organized. On the left side of the model, binders are going to be used, Doc.It work binders are going to be used as we're doing the work, and we'll use those to organize the work and hand it off to the appropriate teammates. It doesn't physically move, but the tracking system allows me to say, I'm done with my step, and now it's your turn, and here's your step. And we're going to have Portal on the left side to exchange information with clients when we're in more of a collaborative mode. So for instance, they might upload a QuickBooks file, or maybe we're exchanging some other type of dynamic document. Then on the right side, the archive, the Doc.It archive, is used as your static, non-proprietary electronic file room where we can find completed work and work papers that are bookmarked and indexed in PDF. And Portal also exists on the right side because we can use that as a secure interface to deliver completed work to clients. So key takeaways here as we wrap up. Number one, define success by starting with the end in mind. It's important to decide where you're going and how you're going to get there. And then the decisions that you make should support your status as a knowledge broker and a trusted advisor. Those core beliefs that we went over, they don't have to be particularly the ones that are in this show, but you want to come up with your own core beliefs. That's what's going to guide you, the principles that are going to help you stay on track. Then deploy technology and methods that align with those core beliefs. If our tools, all the different technologies we employ, and our methods, the way we use them, don't align with and support those core beliefs, it's a signal to really slow down and double check our fundamentals. Like, where are we going? How do we want to travel? What's going to help keep us on track? Like, what's really important to us and how we deal with our clients and our coworkers. And then lastly, accurate models are a frame that shows teams where to begin. They help us visualize how everything's going to fit together and help show us where we can get started. And that gets me to my closing slide. Thank you for your time. This has been Thinking Differently about document management and workflow. My name is Chuck Wilson. I'm a solutions specialist with Doc.It. You see our 800 number there right on the slide, and also info@Doc.It.com and my email address as well. We'd love to talk to you more and maybe schedule a demo or answer any questions you have. Thanks again for your time. Have a great week.